Welcome to this episode of Forgiving the Girl Inside, a matter of the heart. This is May of 2022, and we are doing a podcast blast, sharing the secret where courageous women post-abortion, miscarriage, and loss of a child are sharing their stories. And today we have a reappearing guest, Rachel. She is sharing her story. And it's amazing the thing that you learn when you start talking to people. So we decided to record this spontaneously. I like it. But she's going to share her story of an abortion that she had, that she tucked away. So thank you, Rachel, so much for being here and your willingness, your bravery to share your story. The things we never tell. I swore I would never tell. Did you make that commitment to yourself as well?
I'm not sure whether I consciously made a commitment to myself, but I certainly said at the time it was something I needed to just keep to myself. I mean, if I wasn't going to tell my mum, which I didn't, then yeah, you're not going to go around telling the whole world. If you can't tell your family, then it was just I felt frowned upon because I was so young. I was 16, so yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's amazing. I was 16 as well when I had two abortions, and I was petrified to tell my mom. We have this pull, like my mom and I didn't really have a good relationship either, but I still confided in her and still, got her advice on things. And I, my whole image was she's going to kill me. She's going to kill him and she's going to kill me. And, I can't tell her, I can't, I couldn't even face her. And it happened so quickly. I know are you in the Netherlands?
I'm in the Netherlands, but I'm from the UK. Yeah.
Okay. So you were in the UK when this happened.
Yeah.
So in 1985, when I first found myself pregnant, my boyfriend at the time and I, oh no, we're going to take care of it right away. And it like happened so quickly, and I think I took like two things of Valium before I went in for procedure. And I had my period like clockwork. So all I could think of the whole time was my mom knows when I have my period. She's going to see that I missed it and she's going to wonder. She never said anything. Even afterwards, like it seemed like I just bled for 6 weeks, 7 weeks. It was just nonstop. And she never questioned, like all the pads in the garbage pail or anything like that. And I always wondered. We had a conversation about it in 2016. And then she, told me she knew. She suspected, but wanted to give me my space. And when I broke up with the guy, he told her, and then she never told me. So I thought that
Mm,
was interesting.
yeah.
Everyone's keeping the secret. So did you end up ever sharing it with your mom? Like, who did you end up telling when you're 16 years old, you're all alone? What happened after that?
Well, at the time, the only people who knew was my boyfriend and his mother. And I stayed at their place for the weekend. It must have happened on a Friday then, and I stayed over the weekend. So there was nothing abnormal for my mother, if I was out of the house and staying not at home. Um, and I just remember it was just something that needed to be done, and we didn't talk about it. Not really, even with my boyfriend, to be fair. It was one of those things, let's just get it done quickly as possible, you know,
Mhm.
and get back to normal, get back to life, and pretend it never happened. That was how it came across to me. The mother didn't even really, I mean, she cared for me in the sense that, was I comfortable, and, gave me something to eat and things like that whilst I was staying there. But we never spoke about it. We never actually spoke, how do you feel? I mean,
Mhm.
it was just the feeding side of things is the bit that everybody seems to have an issue with. Um, and so I just didn't speak about it either. I just kept quiet, and I never told people, my friends. I just basically got up and carried on with life as normal, as if nothing had ever happened. Although, I just pushed it away and locked it away, and kind of denied it myself, I think, for a very long time that it had even happened. I remember the day.
Yeah.
I remember going, and everything happened to me, and I just remember feeling that everyone was looking at me as if to say, she's one of them. she's she's lost herself, she's whatever bad label you wanted that people as adults would give you. That's what I felt like I could read everybody's minds, and that they were all telling me something bad about me. It was never something good or to have any compassion for me, no. But it was all
Yeah.
my own made up story.
And the lies we believe, the lies that we tell ourselves and actually believe. But yeah, those feelings that go unprocessed, feeling like, you're no good, you're a murderer, you're this, that, those are the thoughts that I had. And it felt so ugly in the inside. And you had shared in the last podcast, post podcast, that you had felt like you were a murderer, and that did you mention when you saw a baby, what was the thought that came to your mind when a baby looked in your eyes?
Yeah, so for a very long time, well, actually up and probably until I had found I was pregnant with, with my first child that I had, um, that if I looked at baby, or a baby was looking at me, or people, families who had babies, and we were in social circles, I would avoid, because if I saw them, I just felt like the baby would be looking at me and would start crying, because it was like, oh, that woman's not, or that girl is not to be trusted. She's not a nice lady. Crazy when I think about it, if I look back on it, how I was interpreting. Really, it was just a reflection of what was going on inside of myself and the story I was telling me. But the baby symbolized, everything that I had kind of destroyed.
Yeah.
The
Oh, the
innocence,
trigger. Yeah.
innocence as well within myself.
Yeah. Yeah. The triggers are incredible. And, reading the book, The Body Keeps a Score, and
Mm,
I could not remember when I had had my first abortion. And I don't remember the details of my second abortion at all, but my body gets really depressed around St. Patrick's Day every year. I mean, like this past March, I was crying. I would get up from my chair and just start crying. I'm like, what is wrong with me? And then I was reflecting, and I did some cognitive breath work, and I realized, oh, that's the first one. And I'd actually been cleaning out some boxes and came across some pictures.
mm.
And I'm like, yep, and looked at the back of the dates on the back of the pictures, and was like, yep, this is it. It was in March. So it's incredible how, our body remembers and what we go through. And, I believe the lie. And, I like to say, I told my husband, is it possible to be pro-life and pro-choice? Because I can't imagine if I had the same exact information I had when I was 16, I would do it again. I was told that it was a blob of tissue. It was like a tumor. There was no life. I was early enough. I mean, literally, I missed my period the day after I knew. I'm like, there's no way, because I never, ever, I was like clockwork every 28 days. And so it was taken care of very quickly. And I'm connected in a few Facebook groups, and women talk about not even being able to get an appointment. Like they know right away, but they can't get an appointment for like 6 weeks. And they contemplate, wait a minute, this baby's going to develop this much more. I can't wait that long. It's almost like in our thought process, we think, okay, so this is at this stage, it's just tissue. At this stage, starts becoming life. And yeah, we can go off on a tangent there, but I won't. But when did you feel in your being, in your heart, that you needed to process this to start grieving that loss? Or did you ever even consider it a loss?
Um, at the time, and I still stand by it, that it was the correct decision for me at that time to do. I think what I was more angry about with myself was the fact that I got pregnant in the first place.
Mhm.
I was
Yeah.
doing everything right. I was taking the pill. Only I knew that occasionally I would miss one, but it was always said it's okay as long as you're taking it
Mhm.
often enough at the correct time. You should be okay. Um, and yeah, for me that didn't happen. So I was more angry at that than actually not having the child. I think in some respect it gave me, if I'm really truly honest, it gave me what's the word? A clause to get out of the fact that I needed to make this decision. It was like, yeah, I didn't ask for this. I was
Hmm.
doing what I was supposed to be doing, and it happened to me, and I'm not ready for it. It's not what I was choosing, and
Right.
so the fact that it happened, I was angry at life. I was angry at, why did this happen to me? Why am I being put into this situation to have to make this choice at such a young age?
Hmm.
Um, why am I going to be looked upon, frowned upon, given labels that I am, not responsible, or that I'm a slut or a slag or whatever people would presume? That's probably where I was really more angry. And I think really the grieving side of things was something that didn't really happen until really into my time when I got pregnant with my first, and then when I had my second. Always around motherhood, there's always been something that I carried with me, feeling that I was never going to be good enough because I was going to be condemned for what I
Hmm.
had done in my past. And so I over um, was very over concerned that, and had a constant thing going on in my head about needing to be a good parent, um, and never really succeeding to my expectation. And that's something that only in the recent past years probably I have done work on. So it wasn't just focused on the abortion, it was a much bigger thing by then that I needed to work on.
Yeah, so many of us self-sabotage and we don't connect it with the abortion. We don't connect it with that loss. And we have so many losses in our life, and most people will say, "Oh, the loss is traumatic," and they'll think of a death or um, an injury or something like that. But there's so many little losses that we experience that if they don't get processed, they stay in they stay in our hearts and make us bitter, right? So I never connected my abortions to my dysfunctional thoughts, I'm going to call them. I was very angry, disgusted all the time, and I overachieved at work and people pleased big time to try to, because I didn't want anyone to know. If they knew, they wouldn't like me. So I did all of these things to be a people pleaser and
Yep.
to serve others, hoping, and just always being afraid that God was going to strike me down. Like I was, at any moment I was going to be struck by lightning or something. And then you go into that cycle and you're trying so hard to be so good that I was miserable for myself, and I started self-sabotaging. I was overeating, over drinking, and overspending. Literally got addicted to 0% credit cards, became a financial coach to try to figure out like what's wrong with me. And years of therapy, I never, because I chose not to share that secret, I never connected the two, and no one ever dug deep enough. And then when I was introduced to aroma-cognitive behavior practice, I was like, whoa, that's amazing what you can do with your emotions, and not being afraid to address them and to work through them. Because I was taught, you don't process your negative emotions. You don't want to be sad or angry or frustrated. You want to be happy, joy. So we'll stuff those bad emotions and we'll just work on the good emotions. And that's not true. We need to experience every single emotion we have. And the more I shared my story, the more I healed. And going publicly was one of the most difficult things, because like you said, people are going to look at you like, oh, you're a slut, you're a murderer, you're this, you're that. And I was so afraid of what others were thinking because of that people pleasing mode that I had conditioned myself to do. I didn't want to experience that negative stuff. But when I accepted it and said, you know what, it was my choice, I got to choose. And if I had to go back, my 16-year-old self and I had a conversation with the same exact information I had, I would do the same thing. Now, if I knew what I knew then today, I may not have done that. Like you said, I wouldn't even put myself in that position to be pregnant with that person at that time in my life, because I would have known there's so many other better choices than that instant, satisfaction and that infatuation type of love that, a 16-year-old experiences. So when was the first time you shared your story?
Probably right now.
I love
Yeah,
it. Did you ever tell your mom? I'm gonna say mom because you said mom, right?
yeah. You know, when you said that, I was thinking, have I told my mum? Or have I dreamt that I've told my mum? Um, you know, I can't. It's a good question, and it's surprising me as I'm sitting here thinking, did I tell my mum, or is it just something that has just my sister knows, so it's not that I haven't. I think even my brother knows, but did I ever tell my mum? I must have done, but you know that like I said in the previous podcast, you know, with my mum, where although you know, she was a very good mum, very caring in the sense of making sure that we had a roof over our head, clothes on our back, food on our plate. The emotional level with her, I struggled with because I'm very. I know now with myself that I'm a deep emotional person, whereas my mum has more difficulty connecting to her emotions. So we never kind of met on that. So even if we did have a conversation, it would have been very surface level. Like, oh, whoa, why didn't you tell me? I don't know. I don't want to put words in my mom's mouth that aren't
Yeah.
true. So um, I just don't remember that, to be honest. So maybe it's something I could bring up and find out, Mum, did I ever tell you? And just sort of put it out there to her. But
Yeah.
actually speaking publicly about it, it's not that I haven't shared it with people that I know, from friendships and things, but speaking about it publicly, no, this is the first time.
Yeah. Have you told your kids?
Yes, they do know. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you?
I just want to say something about the emotional pain, you know, for your audience, is that emotional pain is real. It's as real as physical pain, and it's actually interesting that the brain that lights up when you've got physical pain, when your body receives pain physically, is the same part of the brain that lights up when you've got emotional pain. So you know, your body, like you said, is receiving always and registering what is going on, and with physical pain we tend to go and do something about it. We go to a doctor, and we go and get seen. But with our emotional pain, for you know, we've all been brought up to not go and sort that out, not go and deal with it. It's been a kind of a no zone area, and thankfully that I believe is starting to change, and that's certainly where my work that I like to do is to help people really get in contact with their emotions, because it's so important. And then, like you and I, it becomes easier to talk about things that we have experienced that have been painful, but they don't control you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm.
And yeah, and we have a very similar niche with working with the emotions and connecting the heart to the thoughts to get the results that we want. And the power of thoughts, the power of words is so incredibly, I mean, shifts happen when you just stop and think about your thoughts and what your desires are. And we had talked earlier about what do you want? And then thinking about what you want and then going after it and making that in alignment so that you're actually doing what you say you do. And when you have unprocessed feelings, emotions, it prevents you, and sometimes you know that something's there, but you're not quite sure what it is because you've buried it so deep and for so long. I know I've interviewed a lot of women who have had, sexual trauma. They've been abused, by people that they were supposed to be able to trust.
Mm.
Um, and that instilled, I mean, from a very young age. And then that kind of defined them, and that you get to those walls just come up. And I'm getting really good at recognizing who has walls, and like, oh, I know that everyone has a story to share. And when you see somebody diving in and overachieving, eventually you end up burning out, right? You end up, you can only go so high before you stop and say, I'm exhausted, and just taking care of yourself. What is one advice that you would give someone post-abortion? One piece of advice that would help them heal from their choice.
To definitely sit and feel everything that they are feeling, and to not run away from it, whether it's uncomfortable or not, because it's going to be more uncomfortable further on down the line when you haven't processed it and haven't held space for it. You know, it's okay to grieve, and it's okay, the decision that you made, and to be in alignment with your choice, the only way you can do that is by feeling whatever is coming up. And even if you say to yourself, this decision I made, and then after you've done it, there is some sadness, there is maybe a little bit of regret, whatever comes up afterwards. It's not to say that you didn't make the right choice or for yourself. It just means that there are different parts of you that are going to feel different emotions, and just allow them all. Allow
Mhm.
them all and don't judge them. Just sit there and be compassionate with yourself is probably the advice I would give. If you were sitting with a friend, how would you be with them and be that to yourself?
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. I love that. So tell us a little bit about how you work with women. Who do you specifically work with, and how do you help with the, I want to call it emotional coding, but yeah, I'm sure you have a different name for it.
Yeah, I mean, my work is all about nourishing an authentic, loving relationship with oneself.
Hmm.
And so it's usually women and men. I have had men who've crossed my path, who feel in some way disconnected. They feel that they've got one foot in one world and one foot in another world. They're feeling drawn to want to love themselves, but they're still stuck in their old conditioning of how they have been either a people pleaser, a perfectionist. Um, you know, they've got the beast in their head, who, that inner critic that is just, it won't give up. It just keeps going on, and it just makes them feel that they're not good enough or they're not unlovable. And they're just kind of frustrated with themselves. Those are the people that I help. It's usually, I would say, in this day and age, we call about, people who are awakened. Um, it is for me more the people who have come to the realization that actually how they feel is important, and they want to stop feeling the um, the pressure of being something that they
Hmm.
know in their heart they're not, and
Hmm.
they want to
Yeah.
just be able to transform themselves and bring both feet onto one playing field, and the one that feels right for them rather than the playing field that feels right for somebody else, like parent, society, or whatever. So it's
Hmm.
following their heart.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. I really appreciate you coming here and sharing with our audience your own personal experience. And for those of you listening, if you'd like to connect with Rachel, check the description for links to get in touch with her. And if you'd like to know more about aroma-cognitive behavior, send me a direct message. Be sure to rate and like the show and review the show, I should say. And if you know anyone who would really be blessed by this interview, please share it with them. Remember, everything that we do, it's a matter of the heart.